Hey y'all. That was corny. That was really corny. I'm sorry. That was really corny. But anyways, how are y'all doing? Are you doing okay? Holding up in these quarantine days. We just got news like yesterday that the quarantine or the stay at home order in California is going to be extended until August. August. How the fuck are we supposed to live? My nails. Look at my hold on. Look at my the struggle. Like let's pay attention to look at that grow out. That's the last time I've had my fucking nails done. Like this shit's terrible. It's just terrible. I'm not even gonna go on that rant because I'm mad. But anyways, um, I'm gonna be talking to y'all today about how it is coding a COVID-19 patient. And that's a really big thing. Okay, it's a really big thing. If you didn't know, we're respiratory therapists. So naturally, when there is a respiratory illness or just something respiratory wise, it's a big thing and it's transmitted respiratory wise. We're really in a vulnerable place because as respiratory therapists, all we do is deal with the airway. We deal with the secretions that come out of the airway, the breath, the air, um, anything really. So the goal is to minimize everyone's exposure to um, that stuff. So me and my best friend were like on the phone when this whole COVID-19 thing started, and I was telling her like if I ever have to code or intubate one of these patients, like I'm running the other way. Fuck that. Because those are really high risk exposure procedures to be doing with these patients. Okay. We are given the proper PPE, which is a PAPR. PAPR is like a pure airway something. But we're given a PAPR. It's like that Ebola suit. It has a hose on it and it uses positive pressure to push out or keep out any air or organisms. So um, we have the proper PPE and they're like you can wear N95 and it's like I already told y'all how I feel about that. We're not doing that. So um I had this patient. It was actually the very first code at my hospital. So, in a sense, it was like we were the test dummies, if you will, because it was a really big deal. It was very high stress level. And it was just the very first COVID like death. Damn, you know what I mean? Like at our hospital in our city, it was barely like in California at that point. It was just like like oh my god, a big deal. So, anyways, I had a patient in their 30s, history of cancer before, didn't have um chemo, which ruins your immune system. Didn't have history of chemo, just did a surgical resection. So it was like, okay, he had a history of childhood asthma. But really, like that was it. So I was taking care of this patient and he wasn't doing bad. He wasn't doing bad, but he wasn't doing good. And his heart rate was like I said like 110 all night and that was it. And I had to change the filter on the ventilator circuit at this point. It was like the end of my shift, the very last vent check. I needed to change the filter. So I had on my whole papper with the hose, the spacesuit. I had all of that on. And I go into the room and I notice that his heart rate is like 60. So if you cut it the heart rate by half, that's a big jump, to be going. And um the monitor was just ding, 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 not like an alarming alert, just like a very mellow, like okay, something's going on. I had just told the charge nurse through the window. I was like, do you see his heart rate? Is that a little weird to you? So she gets up. She's like, oh shit. She gets up, comes in the room, and we're looking at the heart rhythm, and it was like kind of going all over the place a little bit, like elevated STs and stuff like that. We called the doctor. My nurse ended up coming in too. Called the doctor. The doctor's like, give him potassium, blah blah blah, and we checked for a pulse. He still has a pulse. Good. Um. So then get off the phone with her. After he kind of like stabilized out or whatever, get off the phone with her, and he started doing this weird rhythm again. We checked for a pulse. This man had no pulse. And at that moment, like the whole time we're going through this with him, I'm thinking like, I'm gonna have to code this patient. I'm gonna have to break the circuit so I can bag him. I'm gonna have to be highly exposed because the tube goes directly into the lungs and bagging and the air's coming right back out. I kind of was like, shit, I'm gonna have to break this circuit. I'm gonna have to code this patient. I had so many other things happen during my shift this night. It was just not the night for this. So, anyways, fuck it. I walked around the bed. I turned the ventilator off. I disconnected him, and I bagged that patient. The doctors didn't even want to be in the room. They were talking and running the code through the window, pretty much. But bagging him. I didn't have a PEEP valve off on because they didn't want me to impede any type of venous return. So took the PEEP valve off. It was pretty hectic. We got a pulse back, connected him to the ventilator, and then he coded again, and then took him off and bagged him again. And honestly, just doing compressions, and like I said, in his 30s, and it was a really stressful situation. I just was bagging kind of like in a daze. Like I was bagging, but like looking directly just like at the floor, just lifeless a little bit. And um, that's when shit really got real for me when it came to COVID-19. That's when I was like, oh my God. Okay, this shit is not just the flu, it's killing motherfuckers. Like, that's when I was like that. And lost the patient. The doctors, like, everyone that was in that code, if we talk about it today, we all say the same thing. Like, it felt like we were in a movie completely. You looked around, everyone is like so fucking serious with their spacesuits on. It's like 6 of us in there, like, just trying to really save this man's life. And the windows are they're like sliding glass doors. They're like ceiling to floor, so it's just really big windows. And there's so many people outside the door, like, just looking, because this is serious at this point. It's really serious. Looking, there's like maybe 20-25 people just out, just looking. And the charge nurse never went in there. Oh my God, she never went in there with an N95 or with the PAPR on. So we're literally coding this patient. She's pumping medications. I am bagging, and the air is coming out right next to her with just a regular surgical mask on. She didn't have any goggles on. It was such a big deal. Like, people were banging on the door, like, get out, tell her to get out right now. And I was just like, yeah, but you're crazy, because I know that our job is to save these patients' life. But just like when they tell you, if you're going down in an airplane, put the oxygen on yourself, then somebody else. Yeah, I don't give a hell if he was coded for an extra 30 seconds. They all needed to put their gowns on, their whatever, and all that stuff, because like now it's just like we're all exposed. You know, she was highly exposed. It was crazy, but they were like yelling, like, get out, get out, get out. There was another charge nurse that just had on a regular mask and some goggles, and it was like the PPE situation and the confusion of what is the isolation level. Long story short, this man passed. Doctors were crying. Everybody watching was crying. I drove home that day literally crying. I cried in the shower. I was really messed up over this first COVID-19 death. I wasn't going to say anything, but then I go, and I knew he was going to be all over the news because it was just like the first case, like I said, the first death in, like in Southern California. And, like like, I don't know. He just, it was a big deal. Somebody, my best friend, ended up tagging me in a post on Facebook that was like the whole article with all of his business, his name, his whole, like, everything that I was saying when I was giving report is what they had in the article. And it said that they got the information from the sister. So we're getting told, oh, HIPAA law, blah blah blah, if you see any media on campus, don't say anything. But then it's like his own sister went to the media. I don't know if she got paid for it, probably, but his own sister went to the media and basically just told the whole situation. So, um, yeah, that was the first death. And it was a really, really hectic because no one knew what the hell we were doing. And now, after that, let me tell you something. After that, the very next shift and report, it was like, oh, anytime there's a COVID code, we're not bagging these patients, we're leaving them on the ventilator to minimize exposure. So I was like, oh, the fuck did we come up with this rule? So it was just like I said, we were like the test dummies. Like, I did what maybe anybody would do, and now we're not bagging them at all. So it's like, it's pretty crazy. Um, but that's my story, honestly. I probably made it a little bit more longer than it should have been, but no, like, you have to picture it because it was just as crazy as it kind of sounded. Very intense. Anyways, I just wanted to share that with y'all. That's coming from a respiratory therapist taking care of patients with this COVID-19 pandemic. Been out here really doing the damn thing. Anyways, any comments, questions, you know what to do. Subscribe, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Instagram. Once again, Shelby_NT. And I'll holler at you later.